Good morning, Dan Delmar in for Elias just for today. On the way, we'll tell you about inflation, about the contest as well. Aaron Rand is coming up as well. I want to talk about his big interview with Justin Trudeau over on Friday and how they're using Aaron in the ads a lot online. We'll talk to him in a few minutes. Plus, the Quebec government wants you to say bonjour first and only bonjour. So I want to ask you, if you're walking into a business in Montreal, are you doing bonjour, bonjour hi, or just hi? And what do you make of the government trying to nudge you in the direction of bonjour only? That's on the way. But first, a new bill in Quebec tackles tipping, and tipping before tax or after tax. Of course, this means that the bill would relegate the tips to a before tax thing, not an after tax thing, to save people money. Jeff Orenstein is the founder of Consumer Law Group. Hello, Jeff. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thanks. What's your take on this legislation? A quick little win for consumers, or will this have much of an impact at all?
I mean, I could see it as somewhat of a win because when you have the machines, and I think there was a viral video that talked about this as well, where the machines were calculating on when you pay your tip using one of the machines, which is quite common now, you would be paying your tip, on top of the sales tax. And so to have it done before sales tax, I mean, is it a win for consumers? Probably. Of course, there are always the options of being 18%, 20%. So, you can still adjust it as you please. It's just perhaps a little bit more clarity.
Is there a problem being solved here? I was a little surprised by the legislation. It wasn't really on my radar anyway.
So I do recall seeing, and it was sent around, I remember this, it was sent around as a viral video where somebody did in fact say, well, there's a mistake with the machine, but it's not a mistake with the machine. That's the design of the machine. And the machine itself is saying, we're going to put a tax at the end of the bill on the final amount. And so one could say that there's an issue, but of course you always had control anyways. I mean, with the machine itself, you could have put 15%, 18%, 20%, or you can actually put in a figure yourself. So is there a problem? That's a question of, that's a matter of opinion.
Is there some fraud going on in some cases here? If you're charging tip after the fact, after tax, Revenue Quebec certainly doesn't like that, but could it be interpreted as fraudulent?
I don't know about fraudulent, but as a false and misleading representation? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, sure.
Listen, it's if it declares it to you, and I think even in the viral video, by the way, people were pointing out that it says, it actually said on the machine that it's being calculated after tax. And so, a lot of people pointed it out and, took a picture there and put it underlined, So I guess it depends on the machine. I don't know that every machine says it, but even in the viral video, it actually did disclose it. So if it discloses it, certainly it is not a false or misleading representation. If it doesn't, yeah, I could. If somebody was under the impression that it wasn't the case, and it's not disclosed anywhere, I could see that falling under the Consumer Protection Act as a false and misleading representation. Yes.
And what are the consequences to that? There are fines that can be imposed, right, from Revenue Quebec?
So I believe so. I don't know exactly what all of the ramifications are, but yes, it would be something that could be looked at. Yes.
Sorry about that, Jeff. A little technical slip there. In terms of just payment processing in general, do you see a lot of cases regarding that fraud at the payment system?
We're talking about fraud in general. Listen, there's a lot of fraud. if that's what your question is, I think there's reports by Visa and MasterCard of hundreds and millions of dollars a year that's lost by way of fraud. So to answer your question, there's no question that there's fraud with regard to machines. But with regard to this particular issue as a misrepresentation, I think it really depends on the machine. And I think at this point in time, most machines do disclose it to you.
Okay. What kind of issues do you typically deal with in terms of class actions at the Consumer Law Group? What cases do you have, big cases do you have going on now?
Well, we do handle a lot of consumer cases, and it could be overcharge, it could be price fixing, it could be defects with manufactured items and things like that. But some of the other cases we do, which more are public interest cases. We're involved in the Robert Miller class action. We represent all of the victims who were underage at the time. There's so far about 50. As well, we're doing work involved in the brainwashing experiments that took place during the 50s and 60s at McGill University. So we're also involved in that case. So we do a wide variety of cases.
I just want to pick up. You're referring to the MK Ultra cases?
I am referring to MK Ultra, yes.
Wow, I wasn't aware. Anything you want to share about where that case is at?
Well, the part that was in the news a little while ago was the fact that we went all the way up to the Supreme Court. At least we tried. We lost in the Court of Appeal with regard to holding the U.S. government responsible, and that was an issue not based on the merits of the case, whether in fact there was financing or not, as we allege, but it had to do more with a state immunity act, where we were not able to pursue the U.S. government before the Canadian courts. So that part was dismissed, but it is continuing against the rest of the defendants, which includes McGill, the Royal Victoria Hospital, and the Canadian government.
I'm just picking up on the case because it's a very interesting one. That's sort of a historical quirk here in Montreal that a lot of people talk about, even to this day. But the allegation, I suppose, was that experiments were done, psychological experiments, on patients in Montreal unwittingly. I suppose was this to benefit the American government or to benefit a U.S. agency?
So I'll just start off by saying these are all allegations that we've made. Nothing has been proven as of yet, but of course the allegations are that it was part of the MK Ultra project. That in fact the MK Ultra was looking for things that had to do with brainwashing, and so they found different experiments that were being done. One of them was being done by a well-respected psychiatrist at the time, Dr. Ewan Cameron, and that was at McGill University. And so the allegation is that they funded the experiments. Whether or not Dr. Cameron actually knew that behind it was actually the CIA, that's a question that nobody really has an answer to at this very moment. But the idea was to figure out how this brainwashing worked. It was during the Cold War, and it was after the Korean War, where a lot of the POWs came back, and they were very sympathetic to the Korean cause, and they said, well, it must be because the Koreans mastered brainwashing. So, the communists had brainwashing, so we need to figure out how to also do it. As we know, that actually was not the case, and there's a psychological explanation to why the POWs were, in fact, sympathetic. But nonetheless, they pursued this objective, and we allege in very questionable ways. And yes, what you would mentioned at the beginning about unwitting is, of course, the most important thing, which is that a lot of these psychiatric patients were going there for, by the way, things that were, postpartum and things that were not today considered to be psychiatric illnesses. But leaving that aside, they thought they were getting, legitimate treatment by somebody who was, well-respected doctor. And as it turns out, they were unknowingly being subjected to, experimentation for the purposes of brainwashing, including, this depatterning program and very high electroshock therapy, more than you would see under normal circumstances. That's certainly what we allege.
Okay, well, again, these are all allegations, but this is very interesting. I didn't expect to go down a MK Ultra rabbit hole here, Jeff. But your practice is certainly very diverse. We appreciate your time, Jeff Orenstein, founder of Consumer Law Group. Thanks very much.